Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are located. It's Open Education Week, so first of all, happy Open Education Week to each and every one of you. My name is Paola Corti, and I am the Senior Open Education Expert at Spark Europe, working together with the European Network of Open Education Librarians. And since a while ago now, we started organizing a series of Open Education Cafés. So I have my cafe here to, let's say, share some insights, inviting experts to sit with us and discuss specific topics related to open education and open educational resources, open educational practices, and policies. Today, our focus is on reward and recognition for professional development in open educational resources. So we are very happy to be co-organizing this event today with UNESCO. And we have guests, thanks to that, we have guests coming from Europe, which is the main region where Spark Europe operates, and also the NOL, the European Network of Open Education Librarians. But thanks to this collaboration, we can also have guests from other regions. And today we will sit with guests from Africa and from the Americas. So let me briefly introduce you the list of guests that we have, strictly in alphabetical order, and then I will leave the floor to the first presentation today. We have Dr. Lilia Cheniti, UNESCO Chair-Holder, Open Education for Innovative, Intelligent and Inclusive Learning, and Associate Professor and Researcher of Computer Science and the E-Learning Coordinator of Pedagogical and Digital Innovation Office in Sousse University, Tunisia, Africa. And then we have Mrs. Claudia Hackl, consulting and support for the institutional anchoring of OER within the framework of shared OER services for Austrian universities, Center for Teaching and Learning, University of Vienna in Austria, Europe. Then we have Mrs. Semonique Harry, e-learning specialist, adjunct lecturer, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Caribbean, Americas. Then we have Mr. Vincent Nirigira, and I hope that I read it correctly. Forgive me, Vincent, and correct me if needed. Director of Digital Content and Instructional Technology Development from Rwanda Basic Education Board in Africa. And we have Dr. Marijn Post, this time maybe I got it right, Marijn, Policy Officer for Educational Innovation with ICT from Han University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, in Europe. And then I'm very happy to welcome Zeynep Varoglu, Senior Program Specialist in the Universal Access to Information section of the Communication and Information Sector at UNESCO headquarters in Paris. So I'm going to leave the floor immediately to Zeynep, who kindly will share with us some, let's say, official and institutional insights into the UNESCO year recommendation and the Dubai Declaration. Zeynep, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity. And I'm just going to present the overview of the recommendation. So this is the slide that I put on every single presentation I have. And it's not because I think you don't know this, but I think it's really important that we keep it there. The 2019 recommendation, one of the greatest points it has to do with the fact that there is a definition of OER, and this is the definition we're working with, just so that we are all completely 100 million trillion% on the same page. And the course is the same one, it hasn't changed. We're talking about learning, teaching, research materials in any format or medium in the public domain under a copyright released on an open license that permits no-cost access, reuse, repurposing, adaptation, and redistribution by others. As you can imagine, this is actually, we still need to say this because there is still confusion that it's not a document on a website that you can just copy. It's the open license that's important. And it's the fact that you can reuse and repurpose and adapt. And that's why we're talking about this, because the people doing these verbs often in this ecosystem are teachers. So this recommendation has 5 areas of action, as you know, probably. It's the capacity building, the policy support, the inclusive, equitable, quality OER, sustainability, and international cooperation. Now, today's discussion, we're going to be talking mostly about the capacity building element and the policy element. And it's looking at how educators create and use OER are properly recognized and supported. And in fact, there are issues in the document that address these 2 points in these 2 areas, but without the other 3 areas, it doesn't go very far. So it is a comprehensive whole. Now, as some of you know, in 2024, UNESCO held the 3rd World OER Congress in Dubai, and it produced the Dubai Declaration, which takes the same 5 areas of action, but adds another player into it, and is AI, more specifically generative AI. And it marks a shift from can we make OER happen to how do we make OER work sustainable for the people doing it? And that question becomes more emergent in the age of AI. We're at a moment where AI tools are being trained on and used to generate educational content, often drawing from open resources that educators have spent years creating. This raises a new and pressing question. If OER has always struggled to get recognition, what happens to that recognition when AI can reproduce, remix, and redistribute that work in seconds? The Dubai Declaration addresses this challenge and calls for a number of ethical frameworks around AI and OER for ensuring that humans behind open content are not made invisible, but far from making recognition less important, AI makes it more important and makes also the work more complicated. The Dubai Declaration looks at a number of things. It looks at responsible use of emerging technologies, especially AI, within this ethical framework. Alignment with global digital frameworks, the UN Roadmap, the Global Digital Compact. It looks at AI-enabled creation, translation, and discoverability. And there are things that AI helps in making OER more useful in some ways. Legal and ethical open licensing frameworks, inclusive and equitable access, open solutions ecosystems. So in the Dubai Declaration, we start looking at the fact that OER is part of an ecosystem, an open ecosystem based on open licensing with open access to scientific communications, open data, open free and open source software where the metadata, the infrastructure is all mixed together in order to be able to really have a whole of open licensing and open access to knowledge, and international collaboration to connect all these elements through shared strands, knowledge exchange, and global collaboration. When we talk about ethical frameworks, we talk in the Dubai Declaration about the ROMEX principles of human rights-based openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder participation, and a focus on gender equity. Now we have the OER Dynamic Coalition, and we would like to invite you to get involved in this coalition. You can scan this QR code if you like and join the OER Dynamic Coalition. This is a group of practitioners from over 130 countries worldwide who share information and collaborate on activities they're doing for OER. And we would like to welcome you to it if you're not there already. I think the discussion today is very important because at the heart of it, it's the humans that make everything possible. It's the humans, it's the teachers, it's the professionals that make OER what it is today and what it can be tomorrow. And with that, I think the debate will be very enlightening. And I've spoken enough, so I will stop and I'll give the floor to the real part of the matter. And thank you very much again for this time.
Thanks a lot, Zeynep, for sharing this presentation. It will be a pleasure to go back to it for more details. Thanks a lot. So let's dive into the discussion now. And I think that the time is right to ask for our guest to tell us more about the work that you are doing. So I would like to start the discussion by asking you if you could share more about the state of play in your national or institutional context and briefly describe your involvement in the reward and recognition activities and policies if you are doing something more specific at the policy level. And I would like to ask Claudia maybe if you would be happy to start breaking the ice and then we can pass the baton on to the next one. You can feel free to do that. Would you like to start?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to start. Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Claudia, I'm from Austria. And with this question, I wanted to give you a bit of a background what we're working in at the moment in Austria. We're growing the attention to recognizing work on open education resources in higher education. So this is my focus here. Since I'm university from Vienna, we are working with the higher education institution side of open educational resources. And a key development in our country is the national OER certification framework. So we have a coordinated certification framework for two levels of recognitions. So the first one is the institutional level, where you can get yourself certified as a certified higher OER educational institution. So each university in Austria can get certified if they have a policy, if they have a repository, and a critical number of OER practitioners. That leads me to the second level of certification, which is the individual level, where you, as an individual working or learning at a university in Austria, you can get yourself certified as an OER practitioner to recognize your professional development and competencies in OER. And yeah, this is the current challenge to help universities get certified and yeah, make it more systematically recognized in the career progression and also in the teaching evaluation and so on. And I'm from the shared OER services, as Paula mentioned, and we support Austrian universities in making these steps. So in making OER policies possible at their universities. And we have different national infrastructures for that. And with that, I would yeah, close my quick introduction. So we have the OER Hub service portal where the universities can get all kinds of information they want on making steps towards open education. We have the OER directory, which is a search engine for OER from the Austrian higher education sector, and we have a national MOOC platform. And it would be wonderful to, yeah, I need a ball now to throw across the globe, and I would throw it to you, Simonique. Maybe you want to join in.
So thank you very much. Let me make sure that my camera is on. So my name is Simonique Harry, and I had a little slideshow. And let's see if you are able to see it. Just give me 1 second because I didn't realize I was going next.
That's the surprise when things are managed
That's
informally
the
as we like.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yes. So let me know if you are able to see my little slide right there.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So let me bring you warm greetings from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Okay, it's not moving yet. So let me make sure I can get this working. Technology. From current slide, let's see if I'm going to get it to play. Just give me 1 second.
Take your
But it's okay.
time.
It's okay. So I'm from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are a small country in the Eastern Caribbean. There are just approximately 110,000 people here. And we have just 19 government preschools, 71 primary schools, 29 secondaries, just one community college where I'm actually attached to, and we have the University of the West Indies Global Campus. OERs and has been something that we have been trying for years. We have been trying it with the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. There have been several projects. We have had many of our teachers trained under the OAS, OER hubs, and as well, I was also in Dubai 2 years ago at the third UNESCO World OER Congress, where I was able to bring back information to our teachers and our educators. We are still trying to get on board fully as a Caribbean country or as a country as in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have encouraged our educators to create, adapt, and share openly. But there has always been some challenge where many of us tend to think that it's just a nice to have product, and we are not yet seeing how we can really embrace and see OERs as a teaching innovation. And it is my job and some of my other colleagues to really push that platform for educators and see how they can be recognized. So while we are small, we are now starting. And I think with educators like Giselle and Mavio, we will be able to develop a good OER hub for the Caribbean where we can all be successful and have recognition as we move forward. So that's it from Simonique, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I look forward to the next conversation. So who am I going to pass this on to? Aha.
Your
Let's
choice.
see. My
Either mine or Lilia.
My choice. So let's see who I'm passing it on to, just as I can get my screen. So let's pass it on to. See, my screen has disappeared. Is Vincent with us?
No, Vincent unfortunately is ill, and I didn't know
Okay.
about that. So yeah, we will send him a lot of greetings and good luck to be well soon. So we
Okay.
have
So can
Marijn and Lilia.
Marijn. Let's go with Marijn.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
I also have a short presentation. So I'm not working that on the level of the Netherlands, but in our own institute. But I also pass knowledge to other institutes in the Netherlands. And we have a large program at home. It is a change approach towards digital educational resources. And we work on all kinds of things in our institute. So on policy, we work on the technical infrastructure, we work on professionalization of our teachers. And in that part, we also work on recognition and reward. We work on the whole cycle of professionalization. So we call it the learning cycle. From people who do not know what they don't know. They have unconscious incompetence. We made a competence profile on open educational resources. We made a competence scan on educational resources. We made a whole program on professionalization. We also make sure people are experimenting with open educational resources. And we also work on the recognition and reward of this professionalization. But when we were working on it, then we were like, what actually is recognition and reward? And how are you going to do that when working with open educational resources? So we came up with a framework. And in this framework, you can see that there are actually 4 steps towards recognition and rewards. First, you have a goal, you want to make an open educational resource. Then you're going to take action on it. You have some results, and then you can be recognized and rewarded. And these results can be all kinds of results. So it can be the educational resource itself, but it can also be research on the educational resource. It can be data from the students who work with the educational resource. It can be peer reviews. And the recognition can also be all kinds of ways to recognize. And you have extrinsic ways to recognize. For example, you can get some money, or you can get a badge, or you get some goodies. And we found that that's controlled motivation, and it works short term. So it works to get people started, and it works for awareness, but it does not work that long. So you also have to make sure people get intrinsically motivated. And this intrinsically motivated is more about autonomy, it's more about working together, it's about culture, it's about making sure the open educational resources match your values. And so here I can share the slides afterwards. So here is the framework for both extrinsic and the intrinsic rewards we use. And for the extrinsic rewards, that was kind of easy. So we just got some goodies. So also I have a sweater on which says I'm an open ambassador. And we have lunch boxes for people who professional do e-modules on our institute, and we have sweaters for people who use them in their education. We also have edu badges, which are Dutch higher education digital certificates. But more difficult is the intrinsic motivation. How do you intrinsically motivate our teachers and our managers? So I'm working now on the building blocks for managers. How can they intrinsically motivate their teachers? And I'm also working on an impact guide for educators so that they know where they have impact on. And hopefully that works, but I'm still struggling there a little bit. And I think that's where I want to end and give the floor to the last speaker then.
Thank you, Marijn. We will
Yeah.
explore more in a minute. So let's ask Lilia now. Lilia, your turn.
Hello, everybody. Just 1 second. I would like to share some my screen.
Please,
Okay.
please do. And in a minute, once we finish diving into Lilia's presentation, we will ask something more to dive in more details into what you are all doing. Go ahead, Lilia.
Okay, thank you very much. So, first of all, I would like to summarize a little bit the way that we have conducted open education activities at Sousse University in Tunisia. So, I'm from Sousse University in Tunisia. I'm UNESCO chair on open education, innovative and intelligent and inclusive learning. But I would like to mention that we had few years ago another UNESCO chair on open education. So actually Sousse University have been conducting some activities related to open education. But what I can say is that mainly our activities are related to 5 pillars, which are capacity building, innovative pedagogy and curriculum integration, open resources development, international collaboration, and institutional engagement and support. Just briefly to share with you some activities which helped us actually to promote open education, but to give some kind of recognition for the work done by colleagues who were involved in these activities. For example, what I can say for capacity building, for example, we have set up spooks, small private online courses related to open education. These spooks were integrated in the doctoral studies, in doctoral schools for PhD students as mandatory course, which considered as a kind of recognition because students would get credits for the courses that they will follow related to open education. Open education was part of the course, so the course was related to innovation, digital learning, and open education, which encouraged many PhD students to follow this course. but also some other trainings of trainer with certification. Also, we have set up what we call Sousse, Certificat d'études complémentaires, which is a kind of 1-year certificate that by the end of the curriculum of this curriculum, the teacher of the student get this certificate, and part of the certificate there is a kind of open education module. International collaboration also. We had a lot of activities related with many partners. In particular, I would cite the project Open Med Scholar. My colleague Dr. Barbara Klaas is present, and she is the leader of this initiative. And it's a very nice initiative where we developed a framework to evaluate the skills of the scholars related to open education, open science, and open research. We have also encouraged a lot teachers to develop resources, open resources, and we are proud that our university is. We have developed the first MOOC in Tunisia in computer science. And we were supported by our university in terms of establishing a kind of space for training the trainer, but incubating scenarios based on OERs. But in my opinion now, I think that still there is a lot of work to be done in terms of recognition, because I was one member of a jury, a national jury for recruitment of teachers, and I was happy and proud that the part related to a pedagogical innovation was part of the assessment grid. However, still openness and open resources are not really highlighted in this grid. So work started already in many juries. So, but the main focus of these recruitment juries is on research and not on pedagogical production. So it is, in my opinion, very, very important that in order to target this kind of national awareness, national policy, we need actually to include recognition of the work done regarding OERs in the recruitment and in the promotion of the teachers. This is very important in my opinion. Second thing is that I have been doing a lot of promotion of awareness, supporting capacity building, but I think that we have to move from this format of project-based activities to more structured and policy-level reward system. As I said, juries is one entry. For the students also, all the productions that are done by the students should be also encouraged to be as open resources. Students prepare their defense and prepare many documents, and these documents could be open licensed so that they could be reused and maybe cited and shared among the student community. So I will stop here, and maybe in the next discussion I will add other information. Thank you very much, Paula.
Thank you, Lilia, for a very clear presentation about the work that you are doing, which is amazing. And you offer me the perfect opportunity to dive into the next step, because actually you mentioned many of the things, many of the reasons why, let's say, reward and recognition are not yet effectively enough, okay? And I come from a European country, which is in many different ways behind the work that you've been doing. But still, we are in the same situation, which is also very common in other countries around Europe and elsewhere. So what I mean is that the work done on OER, let's say on the teaching part of the work of faculty members in universities, not yet recognized for their career. And this would be very important to do, because as you said, it's not enough to work on project base, but you need to work on policy base. So let's start discussing that part. Why is reward and recognition of OER work important? What would happen if we faced challenges more systematically to be even more effective? And what can we learn by comparing experiences and adapting them to meet the needs of other regions? Because, I mean, you share the different levels. We know that at the European level, it's so diverse. Countries are progressing very differently, and this is the context that I know more closely, Lilia and Semonique. So I'm very happy to have you in this room because we have different perspectives from European countries, but we also have yours. And I think that this is the moment where the discussion can help us learn from each other better. So this is not something that I would address in order, in a perfect order. So I would like for you to just talk, just open your microphone. What is working and what is not yet working at good enough speed in your context? Maybe we could start by instinct. I would ask Marijn because I know that the Netherlands is doing advanced work on that, and I would personally like to ask you if you would be happy to start.
Yeah. Well, what we see is working actually for now, and that's the eccentric part is the lunch boxes and the sweaters. It's really stupid, but everywhere I come and I have them on there. Where can I buy that shirt? Where can I get a lunchbox? So people really are willing to do things for stuff. But then, of course, it will not work in the end. And also the Edu badges, I have some problems with reusing them now in the institute, but I would really like it to be a more national-wide way to recognize our teachers. So I think Sylvia is also here. We're looking if it's possible to have like a Dutch framework where we can recognize on, because it makes the value of the Edu badges and the certification better, I think, because then it's not only a thing from the Han University of Applied Sciences, but then it works everywhere. And it would even better if you do that on European level, for example. So I think that's needed. So professionalization program on a national level or maybe even international level, and certification on national level. And that's what I like about what we saw in Austria. And even if you not only do it individually, but also for an institute. So maybe you can tell a little bit more about that, Claudia, how that works, and if it also works.
Yeah, thank you, Marijn. Yeah, since I told you about this certification framework, we learned that this transparency that this framework creates really helps with getting people involved, getting universities involved, getting stakeholders and policymakers involved. I put the link in the chat, but I'll just tell you how many certificates we currently have. So we started 2 years ago with this, and we already have 5 institutions that are certified OER higher education institutions. A colleague also asked about maybe focusing on like primary, secondary education teaching. And one of these 5 universities is the university that provides the education for teachers that will teach in the schools. So it will be really wonderful to see how they implement this OER certificate in their teaching, and therefore how they can transform also primary, secondary education teachers. Since this is not something I can work towards, since my target group is the university level and the policymakers, but then they can move on. And we have 248 certified teaching staff at universities that are OER practitioners. So one would have to see how many people are there teaching at universities, but Austria is not that big compared to other European countries. So we're quite happy with that. And we see that the transparency is a key feature. So on the website, you can see daily how many certificates are there, who achieved what. And this is directly funded by the ministry as well. So this also helps us to have the backup, to get people involved and get this recognition starting. But we face some challenges as well. That's why we now have the shared OER initiative, where we really target Austrian universities by helping them, connecting them, focusing on strategic level, but also on like practical implementations. And to maybe end this story, what we're working on, we have three working groups in Austria. One working on strategic level of open education resources implementing in the higher education institutions. And then one more on the practical implementation with the e-learning, the teaching, media didactics, and one with the technical infrastructure. So many people working together and achieving step by step. So that's what we are currently working on. But maybe somebody from the speaker group wants to follow up how you are working.
I have a
on that.
question, actually, if I can, Claudia, if I may, because I think that it could be very interesting. I mean, you have a minister who is interested in developing this. Was this an initiative that came directly from the Ministry of Education, or were there a group of, let's say, practitioners plus decision makers who asked the minister to have that? Who was initiating? Because sometimes with national policies, it's interesting to know what can be done or imitated elsewhere, you know.
So it was, I would say, both sides, because when Corona pandemic hit, there was a big funding opportunity, and we had over 40 digital projects coming and starting at Austrian universities. And what they had to do, they had all of them had to produce OER. Yeah. So this was some of the drivers from the ministry with this big funding initiative. And I'll try and find the link afterwards and put it in the chat so you can see what projects were there. And also with that, we had one project starting with the certification framework. And it was in the project proposal that we wanted to start with the certification framework. And now it's up and running, and so it's both sides working together. And in the open science policy of Austria, we also have this open educational approach with the whole projects, and everybody knows where to go. So it's both sides. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank
I
you.
see
Thank
Lilia
you
wants
very
to follow
much.
up.
Yeah, Lilia, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Claudia, for sharing this all this information, very nice information. But what I would like to add is that I think there are three keywords that we need to keep in mind when we are speaking about rewarding and recognition. I think we need motivation, engagement, and sustainability. That's why we are thinking about rewarding and recognition of OERs. Because if you offer this kind of framework for rewarding and recognition, you will motivate the educators. They will be motivated and they will be engaged to produce the OERs and to use the OERs. And you will guarantee that you will have a kind of sustainable process for adopting OERs. So I think these three keywords are very, very, very important. But the question of Paula is very important. So the approach should be bottom up or top down. This is a very important question. This, in my opinion, depends on the context. In some contexts, it's easily actually to adopt a kind of bottom-up approach. So things can emerge from the context and then would be emphasized and generalized for the national context. But in other contexts, sometimes when you have a national policy, it will actually give you the tools to or the framework to do activities or to be under this umbrella of the national policy. So I think we need both approaches. We need to move forward on the context, but also we need this national policy to get things more structured. we need also this international collaboration because we have to compare. When I was hearing Claudia, I get inspired on many other activities that I can do in my context, and I think it's the case for everybody here today, at least in this discussion. So I think it's very important to share experiences, to share lessons learned, what was done correctly or what should be done better. So I think it's very, very important to share experiences, to share results of pilot experiments, and that will help everybody to actually to implement better the experiences. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Lilia, for your, and I hear you. I also hear your enthusiasm. We have a hand raised from one of our participants. Please, Tao Li, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. First time at this OE Cafe. So glad to be here. I heard about this through Eleni, and I work with Zeynep. And just for full disclosure, we're doing some work with UNESCO.
Uh-huh.
Unless Zeynep wants to say anything different. I'm a physician by training, and I'm a part-time faculty at the University of Louisville. Also, my disclosure is that I do run a private sector ed tech company and so forth. And we have a commercial side of our model, but we have an open side as well too. It's kind of like a yin yang type thing,
Okay.
but that's not what important. For the part of this, as a medical educator, at least in our academic sense in the United States, you need to get a certain number of publications to go through a promotion and tenure process, very similar to a lot of our European colleagues and our Asian colleagues,
Yes.
and so forth. And so that's what they're looking for. And at least in our world, people don't really know what OER is, frankly. Every time I talk about OER, people eyes glaze over, and they would rather talk about the latest, JAK-STAT pathway, immunotumor marker, or whatever. But you get the idea. It's OER is kind of a foreign concept to them. So our approach has been really thinking about embedding OER in the process of what they're trying to solve. They don't, so at the end of the day, they actually don't know they're doing OER. They may at some level, but they really don't. If I asked them, hey, do you know that's OER? They're like, what's OER? You just did it. Oh, oh no, I just got a publication. No, yes, you got your publication, but you did it through OER. So we set up a system where we encourage them to publish their education as open education scholarship. They get credit for that. It fits the classic Boyer models, right, for education scholarship. For those of you familiar in the academic arenas, and it's something, and then of course they can put it for their promotion and tenure packages. The most important thing is that in following the reusable, the definition, the OER definition Zeynep just put up, it's important that of course it can be reused, revised, and so forth. The key thing is that if anybody reuses their stuff, there is direct automatic attribution back to them, in their version. So that's been one of the key blockers we found from academics who don't want to share. They say, well, why don't you want to share? We don't want to share because somebody will take my valuable work and they will not give me credit for that work. And they're not asking for money. They're not trying to get rich. They just want recognition for what they're doing. And that happens for all of us who are in academics, and whatnot. So, one potential takeaway is thinking about, again, OER not as what people want to be recognized for, but what problem do they want to solve? That OER is part of that critical pathway, right? I want to be promoted. I want to go from assistant to associate professor. I want the world to use my education to be a better immunologist, to be an asthma specialist, whatever it is. But it just happens. But OER is the key to unlocking that. Their reward is promotion and so forth. But OER made it happen, and then we can capture all that data on the back end. Anyway, I'll pause there. I'm sure Zeta will have something to say about
Thank
this.
you, Tao.
Thank
So
you.
we have some hands raised now. First, it's Zeynep on my screen. Zeynep, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to, hold on, I'm trying to turn my camera on. I would just like to second what Tao has said. And as I said in the beginning of my presentation, we're now looking at the opens as an ecosystem. And in open access, and I think that's the link that Tao was making, having your publications out there is good for your career. It's actually
Sure.
vital for your career. Without that, you have nothing. So if policies can make it useful for educators' careers to use, reuse, and remix and share openly licensed materials, they do, then this discussion will go at light speed.
Definitely.
And I
Definitely.
think there's something that Tao brought up that's just the use of DOI, digital object indicators, is really important. And it's the reason it's not used in OER is because OER is mainly in K-12 and somewhat in higher education, but DOI is not a marker for a K-12 teacher. But the point is to have a shift so that it becomes, whether it's DOI or something else, but it's these kinds of things that if they're at that level, then it's not artisanal, this is your career we're talking about. You do it and you get ahead, you don't do it and you stay where you are. And it's as brutal as that. So I think there's some learnings that we can really take and it will
Yeah.
go forward. So just to bring that up. And thanks, Tal, for bringing it out too.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Zeynep. Say, Monique.
With my colleagues here, and I think it's important that we treat OERs as scholarly work, especially when they expand our knowledge. Recognizing OER leadership through workshops, communities of practice, institutional projects, and collaboration is also quite important. For small island developing states like my country, rewarding OER will help us to address affordability. It help us to expand beyond the physical campus, especially in cases where, the particular time of the year, we are affected by hurricanes. And, just that whole essence of building more OERs, it will help us to have a more resilient system and it will help us to withstand any form of destructions. And then we face recognition challenges more systematically, sharing frameworks and examples and policy across our Caribbean, we can accelerate our impact in terms of OER. And I also think it's important that OER should not be looked at as storytelling. It has more value than that. And in order for it to have value, our users, our creators, they need transparency and they also need low risk parts in having their contributions formally acknowledged. So perhaps we can think about some structural matrices. Well, I'm talking that in the Caribbean, we are now coming on board. Maybe other nations already have these matrices where they evaluate OERs already. But we can look at it from case studies from other countries in Europe, even within the Caribbean. And for my context, this will also help us to localize the content and show that particular modules are working. And finally, in this particular section, when open education resources practices, they are visible, collaborative, and they align with our priorities, they become sustainable and then they become valued.
Yes.
So we should be investing, and I bring this back to my Caribbean region, in regional communities of practice, because what may work in a larger European state may not be workable in my little dot on a map, but we are growing. We are growing. We also need to facilitate spaces where quality assurance bodies can tell us and guide us on how our OER activities and resources, and we need to champion each other more. Sometimes we come and we talk about it, but we need to champion more, and that's my opinion on the matter. Yeah, and I'll stop there for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I could sign on every single sentence that you said, and I totally agree with the fact that championing each other and helping each other through sharing experiences, that's the only way to fasten the process. The only way. And that's what we are trying to do in our communities, but we can do better. And because we need to speed up this process. I have Marijn next on my screen. Please,
Yeah, it's
Marijn.
still about the issue of rewarding not only the OER but also other things. And that's why I start working on the impact guide. It's not finished yet, but it's a way to look at all the things around OER. So not only the OER itself, but also the research you do on OER, the knowledge sharing you do with the OER, the impact you have on your students, the impact you have on your institute, the impact you have nationwide. And it has to make visible to the teachers which kind of impact you have and where you are as a teacher yourself. So are you still practicing with your students, or maybe you are an OER leader and you share your knowledge with the whole world as we do here now. So, and I'm trying to make and that must, I think, motivate teachers to work more and see the broader impact you have with open educational resources, and also for your career path. That it's not only doing research, but also the other impact you have with your
Yes.
research or the knowledge you make. So not only as a researcher, not only on medicine, but also on the students you teach on university. So I'm still making that. I will share it if it's finished.
Okay.
It's in Dutch, but maybe I can translate it again.
Please, thank you. Yeah, think about us.
Yeah, it's I used stuff of doers for it, so it brings together all other. So, but it's interesting to see the broader spectrum of OER.
Yeah. Thank you. And I feel like there are some red lines in between the words that you used, all of you, as our guest, but also including Tao, who contributed through your intervention before. There are some red lines that run through the experiences about what works and what doesn't work in a good enough way yet. So let's build on that. Claudia, I think that we have just the time for you to for your
Just a
contribution. Yeah.
quick technical information. In Austria, we're already assigning DOIs, since I heard it from different colleagues already, to OER. But what we're exploring with the shared OER services on how to incorporate OER into research information system, CRIS software, and so on. And because many universities use the same software, and we're trying, to get information. We will start the project soon. And hopefully by end of 2026 we'll have some results to show in another of these formats here at the NOL. Yeah.
Why not? It will be a pleasure to hear more about it and discuss it. And maybe you can also use the community to test it outside once you know about that. And I like the comment that you added right now to the chat, Marijn. I think open science is open education and vice versa. I totally agree with that. This is one of the things that came to mind. I'm working on connecting the opens lately to try focusing on ways to make them even more effective by talking to each other more, bridging all the gaps and the silos that they are wrapped around, so that we can. The community is the same. We all believe in the same values, but there are needs and career needs, but also recognition needs, etc. So the more they talk the same language, use the same tools, and allow people to thrive, the better. So we are not solving any major issue today, but I really appreciate this conversation, and it's been, as expected, a learning experience. So I'm very grateful for all of you showing up and sharing your knowledge. I will share with all of you the recordings as soon as edited, and I'm very happy that we had this opportunity. And I'm also very happy that we co-organized this with UNESCO, because without this partnership, it wouldn't be possible to have some of the very important guest we had today. And this is just the start of another fruitful, continuous conversation, I hope. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for all the participants who've been with us.
Thank you.
And thanks again.
Okay.